You found it. The podcast, Create or Die. The place where we creatives get together. We talk shop. We talk about the ins and outs of the business, and the good and the bad. The fun and the not so fun. You know, we're trying to open up a world, demystify the craziness that is commercial art and design and creativity in all of its forms that a younger version of myself would have killed to get a peek on the inside. In fact, I remember, what was it, 2001, early 2001, flipping through the yellow pages, telling myself, I'm about to get married, I'm ready to sink my teeth into a real career, I want to do something artistic. I just started calling design studios, I was like, hey, what's up? I'm a guy that likes art. I'd like to, learn about graphic design. I'm thinking of getting into it. And some of them were like, you crazy, son. This is not a good time to be getting into graphic design. I think it was because of, the .com burst. But then you had others that said, you know what? I'm always willing to help a dude out. Come on by. Let's chat. And I appreciated that. I remember one studio said, bring portfolio. I had done little to no design. For some reason, I had the bright idea of, hey, I've got my own printer. I'm going to, look in the fridge. Do I have something I can make a label for? I grabbed a bottle of mustard, designed some quick label, put a lens flare on it, which, you weren't seeing that in label design. So it was obviously because no one had thought about it because it was such a good idea. Put that on there, had it in my pocket, kind of the piece de la resistance to pull out. So it's like flip through the portfolio, and then when you're like, hey, that's cool, this guy knows how to draw, what else you got? What do you got in the way of design? And I was going to be like, you know what? I just did this today. Can you believe it? Printed it on my own state-of-the-art printer at home, hooked to my personal computer. The whole inkjet stuff. Are you amazed? And they told me, I don't know if design is the right thing for you because, you've got some potential when it comes to illustration, but your design abilities are very weak. And, I hadn't been doing design for that long, a couple hours at that point. So I thought, hey, I'm not going to let this beat me down. I'm going to learn what I can. What does it mean, to make good design? What does good design look like? And long story short, I learned. And I learned it's subjective. And I still do stuff that is not as good as it could be or should be. But in the end, we're opening up that world to others. People gave back to me. They were real to me about what worked and what doesn't. And now me and those that I call my guests are coming on the program for you to do that same thing. So that you can listen in and hear that, not everyone comes out of high school having all of the skills to be an amazing designer or creative or musician or developer or whatever. It takes work. It takes dedication. It takes perseverance. And even late into a person's career, they still experience that gnawing feeling that we call imposter syndrome. It still happens to me all the time, I'm going to be found out. They're going to realize that I've just been winging it all this time, and I'm going to get found out. But you know what? Looking back, I produced some decent stuff. and so have you, and so have they. And everybody experiences that feeling of not being up to the challenge. And as we've been doing this podcast, as I've been doing my research, I've found that, you know what, that's actually a good sign, imposter syndrome. That means that you want it bad. You want to be better. You're pushing yourself, and you're putting yourself in situations that are bigger than you, that stretch you. And so that's where that imposter syndrome comes from. Because if you were like, hey, I got this, I'm just phone that right on in because I got it, then you're not going to got it. You're not going to get it. You're going to get done. You're going to get got. And I know, throwing out some weird slang, Gen X style or whatever, because I'm not hip to the cap and the no cap and the things that the kids of today say. But hopefully it's coming through. Hopefully it's making sense. So that's a little bit about what we're doing here. Episode 38. If you're just joining us, welcome. Don't be afraid to go back and watch or listen to previous episodes. And I'm pretty excited about this episode. We're blazing new trails. Okay, are you ready for it? Are you sure? Well, let's do it. That's right, like I alluded to earlier with today's guest, we're blazing those new trails. That's right, we have our first software developer on the program. You may be thinking a developer, well, that's like the opposite of creative, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Some of the greatest creatives of the modern age are developers. Look at Ed Catmull of Pixar, Elon Musk of SpaceX, Tesla, you name it. And Will Wright, the inventor, creator of SimCity, a bunch of other games, just creative genius and developer all at the same time. And that's just to name a few. Well, I have no doubt that today's guest, Mr. Benji Brown, will be numbered among those revered creative technologists one day. In addition to his mastery of code, Benji is an entrepreneur and an accomplished classical guitarist. I mean, that's what he did in college, studied like music theory and all that jazz, pun intended. Is that creative enough for you? Yeah, I think so. So without further ado, my boy, Benji Brown. So, Benji, appreciate you jumping on this little program with me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
And now we've known each other and worked together. Several years ago. What's it been?
It's almost been a decade almost.
Yeah, close to 10 years. That's what I was going to say.
Back in California.
Yeah.
Some good times back there for sure.
Yeah, and I remember initially, when you had submitted an application, you had just created a iPhone game.
Yep, Bronto Blast.
Bronto Blast. Yeah.
The dinosaur that lights his farts on fire as a mode of propulsion. Pretty ridiculous. Yeah, that was a fun project. Yeah, it was fun working with you at Flagship, definitely, man. And
yeah,
it's been great kind of seeing where you've gone from there and where I've gone from there, and just what can happen in a decade is pretty wild. Specifically, technologically, being creatives, we really kind of key into some interesting new ways of interacting as humans, and so it's, to see this explosion of new ways to interact has been pretty wild in the last 10 years.
Yeah, for real. I remember you bringing in the initial Oculus to the office, and I didn't want to put it on because I was too worried I was going to get motion sick, so I don't think I ever tried that version. But you've been
that was the one I got off of, what was it, Kickstarter, when they did a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Like they delivered the headset like 9 months later or something like that.
Mm.
Didn't they get sold for like $1 billion?
Something like that.
Yeah, so that $300 investment really should have. Never mind.
Right. We'll do the calculation. You should.
Yeah, let's do the calculations. 8 million to 1 billion. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, and you've been working in that world ever since, and other forms of software development. Now, you're the first developer we've had on the program, believe it or not. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you got your start, what drew you to software development, and maybe other ways that you use your creative genius.
Sure, man. Thanks. Yeah, so I think I first got into development when my dad had an Amiga computer way back when. It was awesome. And I remember he took me down to a store in Sacramento. It was like a long drive. It was like one of like the cooler things I got to do with him. And that Mac store had a bunch of games. And I remember going through the racks and finding this thing called Blitz Basic. And it was a booklet. And inside the booklet, it had 2 diskettes and a whole bunch of information. And it was a compiler and a coding integrated development environment. And so it was all about how to make video games. So I spent my allowance or my dollars on that, brought it home, and I started making video games on my dad's Amiga. This was 7th grade. And then I ended up making a little educational game where you flew around a little crow and collected pieces of parchment. So I drew the pictures of the crow and animated and did all the logic and such. It's basic. And you ended up like learning a poem. So that was the first game. And I brought that to my 7th grade class and showed them on the TV with my computer plugged in. My dad was super nervous, bringing a crazy expensive computer into the class. So, yeah, from there I just kind of kept on programming, mainly games, up until kind of went off to college. And at that point, I got really interested in music composition, playing classical guitar. So I did that in college, did music composition, and AI music. And then after that, I kind of got back into engineering, worked at a video tech company, building out like a video transcoding bunch of programs, some live streaming programs, some DVD ripping programs. It was pretty fun. And then, I went over to Flagship, built up some mobile apps because I started getting into mobile app development. After that, I became a CTO for a dating app called Whim that did actually pretty well in the Bay Area, LA, and New York. Did that for a couple of years. And then kind of brought on some more clients, ended up starting my own development firm called Tsuji Games. And that was, it's been going ever since. I think that was 2017 is when I started that. Ending up, getting a lot of clients, building like an automotive technician platform using augmented reality, doing trivia games, doing video dance battle games, just a bunch of different apps. The latest one that we pushed out for a client was a VR tennis game called True Tennis VR. So that was on the Oculus Quest 2. Really, really great project. Really, very, very physics intensive, getting it nailed, because this is really like a training tool for those individuals that love tennis. So, and that whole time I actually, to make all this happen, I ended up building up a team in Vietnam. So 9 engineers, some artists, have an office over there. I've been over to Vietnam a bunch of times. Great people, very skilled in my team. Just kind of grew organically, 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, that kind of thing. It's been interesting to kind of manage and help design and also program, across the Pacific Ocean and that communication and just, being a liaison to all the clients and such. So it's been kind of a wild ride. I love building products. I've been super interested in, the mixed reality space, the VR space, the AR space. Definitely with Apple announcing its new headset, I think we're now going to be stepping into a next phase, specifically because Apple is like one of the biggest computing companies out there. When the Magic Leap came out, I got super hyped about that. Ended up buying it, but it was definitely super early adopter mode on that one. But I could talk a bit about how my experience with that one is and how maybe Apple is on to the next wave. Anyways, that's kind of my my flow. Lately, been working on some more like kids educational apps.
Okay.
We have internally one called Rumble, which is like a group video chat, live streaming esports game show app where you battle your NFTs before NFTs became not cool, I guess. Whatever, I'm still loving it.
It'll come back around.
Yeah, right. It's just cycles. And then the other one is an augmented reality kind of ed tech live streaming with video on demand content. And you kind of explore a game world as a kid, and we're really shifting that into becoming an English learning as a second language app.
Cool.
Yeah, and lately also been working with some clients, doing some music, very, very music-centric stuff, like with Sonos, and doing creative technology there, as well as some video dance battle apps. So, yeah, man, been a bit busy dude.
Yeah.
Done a lot of things. It's kind of crazy being a creative. Like, you work really hard to find the spark within things that you develop. You go through these different phases, up and downs of, what you get really interested in. And I think always asking that big why question is what's kind of guided me throughout all the things that I do. Specifically, in the latest revision, working on audio experiences, like how that makes me feel, how I'm super connected to the musical experience, working on educational experiences, that deep purpose that I feel when I'm building something that will educate, thousands of children. Like, that feels good. So like that why as a creative is kind of the question that I'm always trying to answer. So it's been a wild journey so far.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's something that you talk about, the why or a purpose and kind of something bigger than yourself and essentially making the world a better place, without sounding cheesy. But I didn't realize in past jobs, as much as I loved, the flagship during the heyday and creating things for creative sake and then just to kind of pay the bills. The place I currently work at is the first place I've worked at that really had a mission to, the mission is to empower, what is it? To empower the world to be financially strong. So, right,
that's a great mission.
Yeah, so someone who
don't have a financial education. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm definitely one of those who grew up without a silver spoon in my mouth. We come from like a blue collar background, and that just didn't have that rich dad, if you want to refer to rich dad, poor dad, to kind of show you the ways of how money really works. But so I love that you called that out, the purpose part of things, and I'm sure that helps you when you're getting that last 10%. That's like kind of the devil in the details to push through. And
it always going back to that why kind of helps me definitely push through to the final. I'm a person that loves shipping things, like actually delivering the product. It's actually something that I've worked with a lot of my clients, because a lot of the clients, it's like one of their first or second times delivering a product, or they just haven't really come focused with what they want to really build. They have this idea. And so for me, I just really always am trying to apply, like, how can we get this out the door? Let's get this into the reality where people are actually using it so that you can get some feedback. So definitely getting through that last 10% I always kind of head back to that purpose, because it can be tough at that last moment, especially when you're dealing with emotions and people want certain things in a certain way. And I agree with you on that one, man.
And getting the client or stakeholders to agree that, this is an MVP, it's good enough, we're going to collect some data, like you said, and iterate and make it better.
Definitely.
I love that.
Sure. Probably something I learned a little bit from Flagship, actually.
Yeah, okay, well, good. I'm curious on another area that you create in as far as like running a business development. You talked about working with the team in Vietnam, and what do you do to get new projects coming through the door? Is it mostly word of mouth? Do you do some type of marketing?
Yeah, no, great question. So, it's been a combo of word of mouth mainly, actually, getting a presence out there, been to several events, some networking stuff. I find that doesn't work as well as just kind of getting a larger presence online. So finding interesting new types of lead generation. I find going out on LinkedIn and connecting with individuals that are building products that maybe they're missing a certain part of the product that they need. And so for some reason, I identify what that is, and I can connect with them and kind of bring that up. And they're like, oh my God, yeah, that's totally something we need. And so, some of it's been luck, just like random people reach out, through the website. So it's always interesting. I've definitely gone down some paths where I've spent hours and hours of doing business development, trying to connect with clients, and it doesn't work. You just waste a bunch of time. So have I really nailed what that experience is yet? I think it's getting on as many communicative avenues as possible so that you can, let people know what you can build. I think also the fact that we have portfolio pieces, apps out there that are fully functional, people can download them and they can be like, holy crap, like you can live stream and video chat and play video games all at the same time. Like, this is crazy, So I think that displays our technical ability and definitely allows, things to work out for me. So, as for working with the team, it's all about defining the right skill sets, bringing on the right people, not having the right people, and saying yes or no to certain projects. I try to go through like a discovery phase with my new clients just to make sure that what they're building or wanting to build kind of aligns with what we want to build. We only have so many minutes in our lives, and so sometimes I say no to projects because it's not something that I super resonate with. I find that when I start on a project, it will be a multi-year experience. So like sometimes you got to be like, what do I believe that's in this thing? Am I confident that, technically we can build this thing out because we got mad skills, but like, is this something that in 2 years, we've built up this new potential skill set because we've explored this interesting area of design and human interaction. Is this what we want to spend that 2 years on? So that's something that I always cognate when I'm meeting up with a new client and going through that discovery phase. It's not always driven by revenue. It's often driven by like how we want to build out our next portfolio piece, or if I resonate with that person that I'm going to be working with for 2 years, the client.
For sure. No, I love that. And that's something that I've struggled with. I want to make everyone happy. I want to say yes. You're thinking, what if I say no to this? And am I going to have the money to keep the doors open and pay my bills? And but it takes a lot of courage, I think, to say no to things. And that's good that you can engage in some type of a discovery process. Like, hey, let's invest 10, 20, 40 hours, whatever. And see, you'll walk away with something that'll, inform whoever it is you end up working with, whether it's us or someone else. And that's great.
Yeah, I find that they super appreciate it, actually, because sometimes even if you don't resonate with what they're building, you can kind of help them think a little bit about, and sometimes they come up with a different tact and then you go that way. Not that I want to like change people's minds or influence them in different ways. I just like, it's sometimes great to have that discovery conversation because, some folks come to me, they're not even thinking about the business plan of it, they want to make this thing so bad. I'm like, you really want to spend $200,000 building this thing out? Like, how are you going to make that $200,000 back? Like, how many years have you worked to make $200,000? Like there's, I sometimes people don't think about that stuff. So it's great to have those conversations and that discovery phase for sure.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love that. So you keyed it up earlier, the new Apple Vision Pro device. And, I've heard people on both sides of the fence, it's too expensive. They don't like the eyes, they don't see the potential for adoption. But for someone who's been through it with Oculus and the other one you mentioned, I can't remember.
Magic Leap.
Magic Leap. Yeah. what are your thoughts? I mean, you mentioned that Apple's a juggernaut. I mean, BlackBerry was a smartphone before the iPhone, but everybody needed an iPhone where everybody didn't need a BlackBerry. And I see that this will potentially be that with mixed reality. So I'm curious to dig more into that with you.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was a pretty exciting announcement. I think everyone's been looking for it for a couple years, especially in the like VR, XR realm, because everyone's in that realm. Everyone's pretty hyped about it. They think it's like the next future of computing. As a developer that's been building products for several years now in the VR space, in the MR space, there are some inherent problems with it that are difficult. There are people out there that will put their headset on for 6 hours. Right now people use their phones so much. They just look at that screen all day, every day. Sometimes they're on their computer, maybe 8 hours working on their spreadsheets or whatever. But people are so much on their mobile phones. And this has always kind of been like a deep thing within me when I'm building products out, is like, I do feel like we're still in this mobile first world. So as we step into this more immersive reality or mixed reality, augmented reality experience, I think Apple's been taking a very intelligent tact, first of all, building up through this window that they already had, their phone that they built out, building up the technologies, leveraging, new types of cameras, new types of sensors, new types of things that they can embed within the phone to augment that experience that everyone's holding in their pocket. Build up a lot of technology behind that to then make this next step of, all right, now we're going to slap that window onto your face. And what does that mean? I think their human-centric design that they focused on with this latest product announcement that they did, it really defines something new. The difficulty of having a thing on your face is that it's uncomfortable. You don't want to have it on your face for a long time. It's really bright. Your eyes get tired. If you have glasses, I don't know if you've worn a Quest 2, but you put that Quest 2 on, you have to have the glasses on. It's super awkward. So Apple's kind of put in these, lenses that will magnetize in exactly like how Magic Leap did. So Magic Leap in the past is this mixed reality headset that uses wave-guided lenses. So it pretty much like refracts light through the wave-guided lenses, and then those lenses actually kind of almost like shoot holograms into your eyeball. And so you can see through, so I can see the world around me, and it's like I'm almost seeing like colored ghosts, and I can interact with those colored ghosts, and there's hand movements, and I can connect with them. So, is Apple doing something super new that Magic Leap did like 5 years ago? No, Magic Leap kicked ass 5 years ago. It's just, it was still heavy on the face. It was hard to deal with if you didn't have those magical, lenses, if you needed glasses. And, it wasn't super interactive enough. There was some lag, there was some interaction stuff. We as humans, I've worked on apps before, and if you don't get the right animation length time, or you're not snappy enough with the user interface, you get such a visceral reaction from your users that they just want to throw it away. Like, we're so conditioned as individuals to have super responsive haptic experiences, and if you don't have that when it's images being burned in your eyes, you just take the thing off. So I feel like we're still, we're definitely much encountering that face problem, holding something on your face and it being uncomfortable, isolating you from the world. The Magic Leap tried not to isolate you from the world. You could see people around you. They could actually look into the lenses and see what you're looking at, in a sense. And then, it was still too bulky, and it was $3,000 to buy one of those from Magic Leap. And then you got the Quest 2, which was way more accessible, had this awesome game called Beat Saber that Facebook ended up buying from Saber Labs or whatever they're called. But it still was that bulky thing. So you're not getting this like 6 hour, 8 hour usage out of the main masses that put it on. So has Apple going to be providing something new that makes that not as exhausting? I haven't tried it out. It sounds like from the reports that people are talking about, like that pass through where you can see the world around you is just super comfortable. So that may be the change.
Yeah.
Where you can fade with their eyesight, or whatever they called it, eyesight I think it was, where you can fade from the virtual realm into the pass-through realm. And the cameras, I guess, are so good that it pushes through like 4K on each eyeball, something like that.
Yeah.
So if that is good, then and the weight of the mask is not like unbearable. I could totally see people wearing it. And it's that comfort experience that, you talked about, like the DK1. You didn't even want to try it out because it would make you sick. Yeah. It totally would make you sick. Like I know people that would play for like 2 minutes and vomit back in the DK1 days. Yeah. But if Apple's been able to like nail that comfort and feel experience, we may be on to the next step here, because without that solved, it's just not going to get the adoption that people want. The price point, I don't think that's going to really be a problem, because there's super rich people out there that just buy things. I mean, Tesla's a sign of success for that, right? People bought this $200,000 car. It's a status symbol. So, and it's got the Apple name on it. So I think it's just the comfortability. If those people that are super rich buy this thing and they're like, man, this is uncomfortable, I'm not going to wear this anymore. Then I'll have a problem. Is it going to be something that people wear out and about? I don't think so. I think we're going to still have that Google Glass problem where it's just not cool. People don't like the idea of being filmed all the time. I bought some Snapchat glasses, some spectacles. Yeah. And, it was nice. Like, here they are right here. The old ones. Snapchat was really smart in that they put some like sensors on it, so you knew when you were being filmed by the person wearing the glasses. But people just still kind of get that feeling that I'm being observed, and so there's a different vibe that gets projected. So is it going to become something that we wear out and about? I don't know, but will it be a great workspace headset if it's super comfortable and that pass-through eyesight flow is amazing? Obviously the applications and how you use it too, but I think that'll be the game changer for this. And I'm personally pretty hyped about it. I haven't tried it out yet, so I could be like, once I try it, I'll be like, oh my God, no, this is this is a failure. But I'm optimistic. Apple does a great job in product design, so yeah, I'm with you.
I share that optimism, and and some of those things you mentioned, I think it's likely that Apple's addressed it, like the quality of the screens, and then the latency with their 2 chips. You got the M2 and the R1. Yep. Which is, sounds like it's just going to blow anything else away that's ever existed. And then, I don't like the idea of a cord, but getting the weight of the battery off of your head is probably a good idea. Yeah. I
know some people might actually put the battery back here just because the headset front is so heavy that they want to counterbalance. We'll see. There'll be lots of custom things that people build.
Right.
If it becomes a hit.
Yeah, no, so it sounds like Apple's invested in it, and I think there's a good chance that even if it doesn't, have an amazing adoption out of the gates, we'll at least see a couple revisions or iterations before they were to drop it or something. But
and just the fact that there's an app ecosystem from the get-go, that'll be pretty interesting. Price point's way too high, but it'll come down as more things, and maybe it'll become the next like way that we type on our computers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited about the idea of the hand movements and then tracking the eyes, and I think there's a good chance that you get this into the hands of awesome developers like you. You'll develop this shorthand where you can be programming inside of there with eye movements and hand movements, and then you start to say something and it auto knows what, and you're just kind of and it's sticking in all these different lines of codes for you.
Oh, totally. Yeah, we're all this predictive stuff that's coming out, the way that with the large language models, like, man, we are in such a crazy time of creation. Like I feel like I felt like wizard programming in the past. Like I can create these things from nothing, but now I feel like just like a genie where I can just speak things and things come into existence. Yeah, it's crazy. And so like these new interfaces, like something like the Vision Pro, like it's a new visual experience that we haven't potentially had time with yet.
Yeah.
And so it's just going to be this new big creative frontier that will have to be explored. Like if it becomes ubiquitous to where we exist, if we truly go into this metaverse place, you know, this Ready Player One kind of thing, like, man, the ability to speak things into existence we're just going to get so good at imagining.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And as someone who, you know, creates illustrations or images, 3D things, you know, I get a little worried about the Dolly and the Mid-Journeys and ChatGPTs kind of, but but to your point, I think there's new jobs that are going to be created that we haven't even thought of yet. One application I was thinking of the other day is, you know, let's say I want to create my own full-length animated film, and I want to personally focus on the main character, but I could potentially use AI as my horde of minions that are creating the background scenes, and so, you know, I think it could potentially put more power into the individual's hands, and you don't need 1,000 people to create Into the Spider-Verse here in 5 years.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, Into the Spider-Verse was like super awesome.
Yeah.
But if it takes less people to produce the same level thing, you could take that same amount of people that took all to produce that one thing, and now you have the breadth to produce something, you know, 10x even more, like, better.
That's
you know,
true.
like now instead of producing just a short, you have a lot more time to potentially fill out the whole world building that is surrounding this. You can go down the side pathways of, you know, if you have the funding for this, to go down the pathways of like, what are some of the characters that are, you know, off to the side, you know, so you could start thinking about, you know, other serials that will happen from this process. What is the game development process? You know, how do you then create kind of like a generative world that comes from this main storyline that you built out? And so like, it just gives a lot more latitude for the same number of people to produce more really cool experiences.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we'll reach a point of content saturation where we'll be like, man, there's too much content, we can't consume it all.
Right.
But that's the only like positive spin I can kind of think about this as well, is that it'll just allow us more creative latitude. I definitely think it'll like diminish some of the built skills we have, but
no, that's a good point, a good reminder, because I remember working at Flagship, and you know, when I started as the first creative there, and I was doing web design and web development, I always felt like I had to start that website from scratch. You know, I was building individual divs and then, you know, Steve Groff came along, and he was all about leveraging templates, and I just felt like, no, that's
right.
not what we do. But because you're not reinventing the wheel every time, you're starting from then you can take it further and waste less of the client's money and
produce something even more thought out. You know? We'll see where it heads, man. All these surfaces of being creative upon, I think, you know, all in all, we'll just maybe get better at asking those deeper questions of why we make things, why we're expressing this concept, how we're like improving the human potential of people. We'll see.
And there'll still be a place for the bespoke. People will want something that was made the old way or whatever.
Yeah, one of my friends, she's a really great jewelry designer. And, you know, you can automate a lot of that stuff, but I think the story behind the artisanal work is also, it's definitely something that people will key into.
Yeah.
They love to tell that at their dinner parties. Look at what I...
Right. I love that word, artisanal, too. Like, I'm going to have to use that more often. Well, this has been awesome to catch up with you, Benji, and you know, I think you've opened my mind to the possibilities of even further of what this next chapter, these next 10 years, even 2 years will be amazing. But before we end, if someone's listening to this, watching this, and they're like, hey, I gotta get in touch with that guy. He's speaking my language. What's the best way? How do we find Benji?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Benji Brown, or you can go to tesuji.io, tesuji.io.
Okay.
It's the name of my company, and I'd love to chat and see what your thoughts are, folks.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again, Benji, and next time I'm in Reno or you're in Utah, we'll have to get together.
Hell yeah. Thanks, man.
There you go. What did I tell you? Benji, he's the full package. He's a creative developer, an entrepreneur. He's working with teams across the pond and maybe a couple other ponds over there in Vietnam. I mean, that's some legit ninja business moves right there. And he's been doing it successfully, for a while now, for over 10 years. So give the man some credit, where credit is due. And he's looking to the future. He's high on the Apple Vision Pro, but at the same time, he's realistic that there are things that probably need to be worked out, but that this is the beginning of something big. So learn what you can learn about the Apple Vision Pro, AI, embrace it. If you're one of those that is like, no AI, no way, I'm telling you, just, if nothing else, get your enemy closer, right? Keep your friends close, enemies closer. And learn that stuff, because then you can, if nothing else, be able to articulate what it is that makes your work as a human that much more valuable, and why someone should choose it over AI. But if you're just blindly throwing criticism at those tools and you really have no idea of what they can do, then that criticism isn't going to come off as very credible. So anyways, another great episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, give us a subscribe. What the heck? We're not going to bother you. We're going to release an episode once a week. If you subscribe on YouTube, you'll get some, other videos in between there. You don't have to watch them. Only if we've done our part with an awesome thumbnail, a title that pulls you in, and you say, I gotta watch that. Then watch it. But we're not forcing anything on you. These things are free of charge. But seriously, friends, until we meet again, keep on creating. Create or die.